are the ones that are proposed to be removed. The ones that are in bold are proposed to remain. So in addition to the subdivision request, they're also requesting permission for removal of these oak trees as well as one large magnolia tree.
A question on the ones here on the left, are they actually on the plots themselves? Are any of the trees on the plots themselves?
Yeah, you can,
That
the
they're
map
gonna-
on the right side here has the lots laid out.
Yeah,
So these squares are the lots for the subdivision, and then these red dots are trees that are proposed to be removed that are either within a roadway or unavoidable for utilities and grading, things like that.
well, a couple of them, I see they're sort of like in the middle of the lot.
And that may be a grading issue. It may be that they have to change the grade so much that there's no way to save that tree. I don't know, that'd be a
Okay.
question for the engineer.
So there's no change to the number of lots or the size or anything?
No,
since-
it's
Yeah, this
the-
is just the subdivision plat, so.
Yeah, the subdivision still proposed the same as the last time you saw it. The only difference is updates to the comments that we had as far as a few technical things, and some drainage calculations, and then the tree survey, so.
Okay, the work session has expired. We will now go into our regular planning commission meeting. Call to order, Stacy.
Gant,
Here,
Davis,
Here.
Diamond, Vaughn,
Here.
Lindsay, Smith,
Here.
Nelson, Tucker, McMillan.
Here.
All right. The next item on the agenda is committee announcement. City Council.
Okay, yeah, give you a report from the last couple of city council meetings. We recently did adopt an ordinance to grant a franchise agreement to Comcast in the city after several weeks of being postponed. In any case, that was adopted. We adopted an ordinance to amend the zoning classification for some property in Woodside Business Park from R1 to B2, as this body had seen before. And let's see, we adopted an ordinance to allow the operation of a medical cannabis dispensary within the corporate limits of the city of Spanish Fort. And I think the last thing I've noted here would be that the property in the Eastern Shore Center that was under consideration for rezoning from B3 to B5 to allow for hotel was also adopted.
Only thing I'd like to add on a few announcements, December 4th, 5 o'clock, we'll have our tree lighting here at the Community Center. December 10th at the Eastern Shore Center, we'll have our Christmas parade, starts at 6 o'clock. And December 15th, we'll have our annual book reading here at the Community Center at 6 o'clock.
Okay, could we have the approval of the minutes? Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any corrections? If not, then the minute stands approved as written. Thank you. Proceeding to old business, agenda item 211202, application for site plan, Spanish Fort, Cactus, Katina, Casey.
Mr. Chairman, this applicant is proposing to develop the site to be used as a new restaurant with the proposed structure totaling 6,250 square feet. The current site plan is intended to be accessed by constructing a private drive along the north side of the lot with a curb cut on Stagecoach Road to be permitted through Baldwin County. Secondary access is shown on the plan via a shared access road with the adjacent lot to the west, with a curb cut on Highway 31. The existing conditions within the vicinity of the subject property along the north side of US Highway 31 are typically commercial to light industrial uses. Because the applicant is proposing a business use in conformance with its current zoning classification, and because the use conforms largely to its surrounding uses along the Highway 31 commercial corridor, impact is expected to be minimal. The subject property was not included on the comprehensive plan's future land use map since it was not in the city limits at the time the current plan was drafted. The proposed use does conform to the current zoning district of B3 general business. And an NPDES stormwater permit has been submitted, and staff is satisfied that proper drainage control measures have been accounted for on the site. The applicant has submitted a landscape plan that's in compliance with ordinance 549-2019. The zoning ordinance requires restaurants provide 1 2/10 spaces for each 4 seats. Because the restaurant proposes a seating capacity of 178, a total of 54 spaces are required, with at least 3 of those spaces being ADA accessible. At this time, the applicant has provided 69 spaces with 3 ADA spaces. I should have been 3. Currently, the site has access to the site located on Stagecoach Road, approximately 200 linear feet north of the US Highway 31 intersection, as well as a right turn only access on US Highway 31. Staff has reviewed the most recent revisions submitted for this application and is satisfied that all comments have been addressed and that the proposed site plan is in compliance with all applicable ordinances and regulations. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve agenda item 211202, site plan application for Spanish Fork Cactus Cantina.
Are there any discussion?
I'm not sure how long this has been on the agenda, but sure would be nice to approve it and move it forward.
It's been a year.
I'd like to eat a taco.
Can we get a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 211202.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Gant,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Diamond,
Yes.
Vaughn, Smith,
Yes.
Tucker, McMillan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hallelujah.
Finally. Next agenda item, 221001, application for site plan amendment to the Spanish Oak Commercial Development. Casey?
Mr. Chairman, this applicant's proposing to amend the previously approved site plan for this site that was approved in October of 2018. The proposed changes to the site plan will reduce the building footprint from the approved 8,500 square feet with 5 tenant spaces to an estimated 5,000 square feet with 3 tenant spaces in the proposed commercial office building directly to the north of the current Lad Drago State Farm office. The current zoning of the subject property is B2 local business, and the proposed use is in compliance with the current zoning. The existing conditions within the vicinity of the subject property are typically local businesses. Because the applicant is proposing a business use in conformance with its current zoning classification, and because the use conforms largely to its surrounding uses, impact is expected to be minimal. The proposed use conforms to the comprehensive plan's future land use map identification of professional and local business, as well as the zoning ordinance B2 local business district. The applicant will be required to obtain a land disturbance permit from the city before any construction activities may begin on the site, and staff is still satisfied with the proposed drainage control or stormwater control for the site. The applicant initially provided a sufficient landscape plan to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission with the original approval of this site plan, and the proposed change to the site plan does not affect the previously approved location and type of proposed landscaping. Therefore, an update to the landscape plan is not required. The original site plan, as approved, provided 30 regular parking spaces with 2 handicap spaces for this site. The updated plan provided exceeds the minimum amount required for this use in accordance with the Spanish Fort zoning ordinance. Staff has reviewed the most recent revisions submitted for this application and is satisfied that all comments have been addressed and that the proposed site plan is in compliance with all applicable ordinances and regulations. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve agenda item 221001, site plan application for Spanish Oaks site plan amendment.
Any discussion? If not, can we get a motion on this one?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a recommendation that we approved item number 221001.
Second. Thank you. Roll call.
Gant,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Diamond,
Yes.
Vaughn, Smith,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
McMillan.
Yes.
Agenda item 221001 has been approved. Moving to new business, agenda item 221101, application for zone changes from R1 to B2. There will be a public hearing on this one. If you would like to speak, please approach Casey over there and sign up, and then we'll call you to come to the podium. Thank you. No, this is Broken Branch Circle. Okay. Casey.
Mr. Chairman, this applicant is proposing to rezone the property located at 32128 Broken Branch Circle in the Woodside Business Park located along US Highway 31 to the south of Cambron subdivision. The requested zoning change is from R1 to B2. The current site was recently annexed into the city limits over the summer as part of a large legislative annexation, and by default has been zoned R1, low-density single-family residential. Due to the property's recent annexation, the future land use map of the comprehensive plan cannot be referenced, as the proposed zoning for this area was not identified at the time. However, based on the original plan of development for the overall center as a business park, as well as the previous zoning in Baldwin County's jurisdiction as commercial, staff feels confident in recommending the proposed zoning change for this parcel. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council regarding agenda item 221101, application for zoning change from R1 to B2 for 32128 Broken Branch Circle.
Discussion? Public hearing is now open. Does anyone want to speak about this one? Public hearing is closed. Discussion? Moving on to agenda item 2211.
Mr. Chairman, this will be a recommendation to the city council to
Oh,
rezone
okay, yeah.
from R1 to B2.
Can we get a motion?
Motion to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council on agenda item 221101.
Second.
Second.
Roll call?
Gant,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Diamond.
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Tucker. McMillan.
Yes.
Agenda item 221101, application for zoning change from R1 to B2 on Broken Branch Circle has been approved. The next item on the agenda is 221102, application for master plan, Northwood subdivision. My understanding, this has been postponed. Correct, Stacy? Casey?
That's correct.
It's been postponed at the applicant's request, Mr. Chairman. We determined that public notice should be sent out for the master plan review as well for the public hearing, so that'll be done. This also has a companion item on the next item, so when you call that one, I'll give you an update on that as well.
Thank you. Next agenda item is 221103, application for preliminary plat. And we're going to have a public hearing on this one. We've also received a request to postpone by the applicants. Mr. Connor?
As we mentioned earlier, and I think we may need to send out notice, Casey, for the master plan, and you might as well put the notice for both of them, for the master plan and the subdivision in the same notice, since you got to mail it anyway. Mr. Chairman, in discussion purposes, since the master plan had not been approved and a public hearing was not noticed for the master plan, we felt like it was not appropriate to approve the preliminary plat for the subdivision or for you to consider it without having the overall master plan laid out in a public hearing and give the opportunity for the public to come in and give comments about the overall master plan as well. So the recommendation is, excuse me, that you postpone action on this at this time at the request of the applicant, and at the next meeting after the notice has gone out, and we're notifying everyone that's here tonight that it will be on the next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting for a hearing for master plan and preliminary plat for the first phase, that it be postponed at the written request of the applicant. Now, there's obviously a lot of people that are here that are concerned about this, so I would suggest that you open the public hearing and give an opportunity, in particular for those that may not be able to come to the next meeting, to have an opportunity to be heard, and time permitting, to make sure we at least understand the issues from a couple of you in that time frame, and then reconvene or close the public hearing, but we'll note that we'll reconvene it at the next meeting, recess the public hearing and reconvene at the next meeting. Next meeting will be at December 12. Work session starts at 6 o'clock and the meeting starts at 6:30.
Any discussion? Okay, we will open a public hearing, but you need to sign up over here.
The notification under the law goes out to those properties that are within 300 feet of the subject property that is subject to the plat. And then we post on the property as well, and it's also posted around the city and on the city's website. So not everybody in the subdivision will get it. I believe, Casey, you do also send notice to the Property Owners Association, is that right? So the POA gets it as well.
Even though it impacts the entire subdivision? You're right, that's the question I have, it impacts the whole subdivision, two subdivisions.
Under the law and under the ordinance that the city has passed, you have to give written notice, by mail to those property owners within 300 feet of the site. We also, as an additional step, post it publicly, put up a sign, and also post it on the city's website, and then we also send it to property owners associations, hoping that the association will get it out to everybody else as well. Those are the standard requirements, and I guess the good thing is there's a bunch of people here, so somebody found out about it. And so hopefully by next time, you'll tell all your neighbors as well, and we're going to send out notice again, and hopefully your POA will be looking for that. If y'all could help us spread the news, we want to give everybody a chance and opportunity, so if y'all will help spread the news, that'd be great.
Is the floor open? Okay. I got a bunch of those, I got a few of those items, about 5 items concerning the Northwoods question, so.
Public hearing is now open.
Mr. Chairman, can I say one more thing, too?
Yes.
The one reason we want to make sure that you all come back to that next meeting is there, if there's any changes in the master plan as presented, any changes in the preliminary plat, we want to make sure you all see that and are able to give comments on that, okay? What I wouldn't want somebody to do is say, well, hey, I spoke at the public hearing, and then they changed the plan. We're telling you that's a possibility, so make sure you all come back to the next meeting, okay?
Before we get started with comments, do we know the reason they postponed?
There was a technical delay on the initial review of this property, it's the project, actually. We had our file sharing mechanism that we use back and forth internally, for some reason, didn't upload all the files, so we didn't have a full engineer review before the last work session. We've since corrected that and sent the comments back to them, and they're still working through them, so.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. Mr. Jeff,
Yeah.
with Nagy.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Jeff Nagy. I live in North Lake. I've been here for about it'll be 4 years in January. I really enjoy being in Spanish Fort area, coming from North Mississippi. When I first saw this looks like the second bite of the apple by this developer to develop a very narrow stretch of properties between Stillwater and North Lakes. And I have some concerns, I have some technical concerns that were brought up with the Baldwin County Planning and Zoning when they retreated at that time, when they wanted to put 452 units back there. I have a couple questions. The very first question is, how did this come to Spanish Fort to Planning and Zoning from Baldwin County when this property is outside the city limits as far as I'm concerned? So if we can stepwise go through that, because now, do we go here? Then is this the requirement before Baldwin County Planning and Zoning? This whole thing has been swirling around, and the minute we take our eyes off of it, next thing you know, we're gonna have 1,000 more cars up on 225. And that's the underlying concern of most of us. I mean, we have bits and pieces, but again, there's always something. It's the same plot, same plan, same ink. I'm a retired engineer. I know how to read these things. So that's the first thing. Why is the city of Spanish Fort here now?
The way the process works, ask all your questions at the end of your comments, then we'll address them.
Okay?
Okay.
The
We won't
second-
dr- won't address them independently,
No,
we'll be here
no,
all night.
Okay, well, some of them, okay. The second question is, was this body involved in the first go-round when it made it to Baldwin County at the Robertsdale Planning and Zoning back in the spring? Is this your first bite of this apple? Okay. Secondly, are any of you members on Spanish Fort as well as the Baldwin County Planning and Zoning? 'Cause some of you look familiar from the Baldwin County Planning and Zoning, so not quite sure. There's similarity. All right. Next thing is, one of the biggest questions on the Northwoods zoning is R1, keeping it single-family dwelling. It's just like any type of creep. Are they going in and trying to get R1 now, oh, since there's already a bunch of stuff there, is it going to R3, and they're going to slip into townhouses in the back? That's a major concern from an infrastructure, from traffic, sewer, school district, the whole 9 yards. 452 units they tried. That is not what I signed up for when I bought my house here. And lastly is the street access between the lakes, where it's a dead end. I bought my house because it's dead end. I don't have through traffic. All right? Stillwater, they're one or two in and out. From some of the plans we saw to Baldwin County, there seems, hey, let's just tie into these other things. And with no disrespect for where anybody lives, I don't want this to turn into Spanish Forts Estates, where there's 16 different ways to come in and out of my neighborhood. I didn't buy for that. So that's the thing. And that's some of the biggest thing, because I see all the tie points. Oh, we're just gonna come in, and next thing you know, there's more traffic running through my dead-end street. That's what I bought for. This is one of the reasons I bought back there. You didn't have high traffic area. So, summary, jurisdiction, members, is this just one of things? Are we gonna toe the line, not do any R3s, no multi-family dwellings, townhouses, any of that? And did you guys touch this thing from the first go-round? And do we have to have access if we do? I'm not against houses. You want to strip of that, keep it yourself. Stay out of the neighborhoods. So, thank you. Now, we get the answer now, or we wait for everybody else?
We'll wait. Thank you. Next, Mr. Dennis DeSalmon.
Thank you. The gentleman before me had same questions that I had, that I wanted to ask, but I have a couple of extras. On the plan, the developer, he wants to put in across from the lake subdivision in Wilkins Creek, quarter-acre lots in lower-priced homes. And we have estate lots, half-acre to an acre lots with larger homes and much more expensive homes. And we're concerned about the devaluation of our property values. And so that's one thing that we're very concerned about. And he also mentioned them wanting to tie into Stillwater Estates, and I've talked to residents there, and they've said that they will vote and try to keep them from going into their neighborhoods, put up a gate. They said they will vote and put up a gate there to keep them from traveling through their neighborhood. He also mentioned the extra traffic on 225, which is overloaded, and I know the White House water system, they're struggling with keeping up their infrastructure now of, the resources that they don't have enough resources to, for their water supply, keeping up the old, replenishing the old system, and I was just wondering how they were gonna handle that, the water system there in that neighborhood. So I think those are the concerns that I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Patrick Jacobson.
Yeah, I'm Pat Jacobson. I live in Wilkins Creek, and it is actually 3 subdivisions that are affected by this. The main thing is they came in, is that 225 on this far end over here on the new plat? So, see, because they had townhomes all over here in the front, the very front on the first plat. Those seem to be missing, which is great, because 400 homes is 800 cars at least, like the man was saying. So they need to do a traffic study, they need to do the school study, they need to do water. I have problems with pressure with White House water. It's a piece of crap. I don't know if it will support it, and are people looking into this? Tying into Stillwater is a horrible problem. When they first built that was supposed to be a part of Stillwater. And I was happy. I live on the other side of the lake, and I was very happy to see that Stillwater is going to eventually come in there. But you get somebody come in from out of town and develop something, and they leave, and we're stuck with it. And, that's my biggest concern is, have all these studies been done? And they've changed their plat already, some for the good, it looks like, but I still would like to see their new plat of the whole area. Because if they make it into single-family homes, that's a little better than we were expecting. Because that'll turn it down from 400 homes to maybe down to 200, 300. And cut down the number of cars, kids, everything else. That's my biggest concern. They were right on the front entrance and they're in the back.
We don't need conversations going back and forth. We gotta
Okay.
keep this.
Okay, is there any condos? I don't see any. That was my biggest concern, was 50-foot lots, and some of them, this first one is like 100-foot lots, that's fine. But when they go down to 50-foot lots back over in here, and then go to condos back off in the back too, you know, some of these people buy these condos and rent them out. And this is not a, between the two subdivisions, Stillwater, the Lakes, Wilkins Creeks, these are all single-family homes. And now we got a high-density thing coming in here. That's my biggest concern. I don't have any questions, that's just my concerns about the whole thing. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelvin Posse?
Yeah, most of our concerns have already been addressed, especially property value. I also live in the lakes, on the lake pictured. And then we have increase in traffic and then a safety issue with their proposed common area, which abuts our neighbors' properties and the lake. And the lake itself is private without common access as it stands right now. If they were to be approved for this, then however many homes we end up in this development, 200, 300, 400, all have access right to our backyards. And that's not even counting how they end up hooking up streets and all the rest of the stresses on the local area that everybody else has already mentioned. But that's pretty much what I have to add.
Thank you. Ms. Connor, would you like to address some of this?
You want to go ahead and close the public, is anybody else?
Okay, the public hearing is now closed.
All right, and actually, you'll announce that it's going to be recessed to the next meeting, and we'll reconvene the public hearing at that meeting if you'll do that.
Okay, we'll recess it to the next public, to the next meeting and open it up again. Thank you.
I'll take a shot, and if I leave off something, let me know. The first question had to do with jurisdiction. This is the first time that the Spanish Fort Planning Commission has been involved in the process at all. They were not involved in the previous process or what's happened at this point. The law changed in the last session or the previous session that changed how extraterritorial jurisdictions were determined, extraterritorial jurisdictions being subdivision review and regulation. Under the law, municipalities are able to regulate subdivisions inside their corporate limits and within a certain distance outside their corporate limits based on the police jurisdiction, I think at this point in time, which is 1.5 miles for a city our size. We don't always go that far, but in certain areas where the city looks like it's planning to grow in the future, the city wanted to have some involvement in that process. And so as part of that process and the change in the law, the county commission and the city entered into an agreement where the Spanish Fort Planning Commission would administer subdivision regulations in this corridor along Highway 225. So far as traffic is concerned, that's always something that's looked at under every part of this process, which is one of the reasons that staff and we recommended postponing action on both of these items until we could actually review the master plan and see exactly what they're talking about doing for the whole site. That subdivision there alone by itself, if you were looking at that in isolation, is not too many lots, and although you may not like how it's configured, you're not going to have 150 houses there on that or apartments on that. But we want to see what the whole master plan for the project looks like over time, and so that's what we have recommended, that we send out notice to all the people that are involved for the master plan and not just the first phase alone. So we want those to be held together. Again, I mentioned to you that we were not involved in the first go-around of that, and there is no member of the Planning Commission of the City of Spanish Fort that is on the county's Planning Commission. They're two totally separate boards. As it relates to zoning on the site, Casey, you have to help me. That's in a county zoning district, is it not? What is the zoning?
It's RSF4, I believe, and you'd know better than I would what that is.
And I'd have to go back and
I
look at
think
it
it's
again.
residential single family, and I don't know what the number stands for.
So there's no multifamily that's allowed in RSF 4.
Not that I'm aware of.
So,
I can affirm that that was on the county, when we looked at it, it was single family only through that whole unincorporated area.
all right, well, as we administer this, as the planning commission, I'm the city attorney, as the planning commission administers the subdivision approvals, we look at the underlying zoning classification in order to do that. And they have not submitted a plan unit development, to my knowledge. Is that right?
Not that I'm aware of,
In
but
the
that,
sorry.
but I was gonna say, but that would be to the county and not us because of the zoning.
But the master plan that they've submitted to us is only single-family dwellings, is that right, and no
Correct.
multifamily? So I think that's an improvement, based on what I've heard from you all, as to what was presented to the county before. Whatever multifamily component they had, or duplex component, or whatever component they have, they're not offering now, or asking for now. So I think that's a good thing, based on what you all said you were concerned about. The next is the street access. Again, we haven't had a chance to review the whole process, and I don't know if there's a representative from the developer here tonight or not, but there is. But my understanding is that there were concerns previously at the county about the number of accesses that were going to be opened up between Stillwater and the lakes. There are, the county has always encouraged connection between subdivisions to allow for access, emergency vehicles. For example, in the city of Spanish Fort, we would not normally approve a subdivision like Stillwater that only has one way in and one way out, in case you had an accident, chemical spill that would allow for evacuation. As a matter of fact, under the International Fire Code, and it affects your ISO ratings, if you have more than 30 homes in a subdivision, you have to have a second separate access in order to deal with traffic and allow for emergency access. So from an ISO rating standpoint, some connectivity is good, so that in the event you had some major issue that happened at the highway there and people needed to evacuate, you wouldn't be able to get out of Stillwater, but you could potentially get out through here. Now, my understanding is that while there are dead ends that were created in Stillwater and the lakes, that the developer is minimizing or trying to reduce the number of connections, because I think they heard some of the concerns you all expressed about having too many connections, but there are some that they're proposing. So when you see the final master planning come next time, we need to make sure that you address that and talk with them about that as part of the public hearing process. Public hearing's closed, but I'll give you one.
Again, but at what part is our input actually going to make a difference to you guys? Because you got, I'm just counting 40 people here probably on this thing, and these are all shared concerns about property values, access, and which are legitimate. These are real-life financial decisions. We have nothing against houses. We like nice houses.
Yes, sir. Let me finish answering your list of questions everybody else is. And the answer to your question is, they're hearing you tonight.
Yep.
They're not taking action on it tonight because they want to give you more opportunity to participate in the process. Going to have another public hearing at the next meeting. And before they vote, they take into account all the information that's provided and the information provided from the developer to try and make the right decision. So as that process goes forward, the next thing that I think you asked about was tying points, and we talked about that.
I believe the water system was brought up.
Yeah, Spanish Fort water system, the way that the development works, I mean, I'm sorry, not Spanish Fort, White House Fort water system, I'm sorry, has to provide a willingness and capabilities level that they're able to serve and meet those needs and demands. So that'll be something that we're looking for as part of the process. As it relates to the construction cost of building the system, they have to build, the developer's responsible for building the system in the subdivision to White House Fork specs. And then in addition, each property owner, each house has to buy a tap from White House Fork's water system, or White House water system, to address capacity concerns and hopefully reserve and plan for the future. That's not something that the government controls necessarily, but it's something we do look at to make sure that they have the ability to handle that. Any other issues y'all can help me remember? Traffic study, school study. The traffic study is based on, since that's a state highway, the determination will have to be made by ALDOT as part of the review process for the access, if they'll require a deceleration lane, acceleration lane, or any other intersection improvements. If they require a traffic study, or if the engineer, our engineer determines that a traffic study is necessary, that can be requested, and that's part of the engineer review process that's going on now. As it relates to the school study, we don't normally at our level require a school study per se. We try to keep the school system informed of what's going on growth-wise. They have access to our information, and that's how that's coordinated. Anybody have another question?
Yeah.
There was also,
Go ahead.
okay, I believe the last gentleman mentioned access to common areas and maybe amenities that might be shared
Yeah.
unintentionally.
And that's something that we'll have to discuss and look at, and you all need to definitely give your input about that at the next hearing. And if you want to also submit written comments, you're able to do that either by email or by letter. That can be reviewed as well, so we encourage you to bring those points to the attention. As it relates to this site, the common area portion there, I'm assuming is mostly wetlands and woodlands? Is that right? But it gives a pretty good buffer between that phase and the back phase of the lakes. So on some standpoint, that could be a good argument. Now, as I look at the lake here, you're showing some lots that back up to the lake itself?
Yeah, and it's part of, it's the weird thing going with Spanish Forks and Baldwin counties.
Can you identify yourself, sir?
Justin Britt with Dewberry.
Okay.
I'm the engineer of record for this subdivision here, and going by Spanish Forks and Baldwin counties, subdivision regulations make it a little tricky. But I have to show park space and open space separately by your rules. So some of that could be left wooded and a buffer area there as well, if we can make the calcs work with a 10% park space.
Yeah, I think the concern that I heard them say tonight that you might want to address is having access to what has been considered a private lake from the community as a whole. Having a lot back up to it and participate's one thing, but having access to the whole community is something different. So y'all might want to think about that and consider that as part of your process.
Absolutely.
And then be prepared to answer the access questions that they talked about.
Sure, I mean, I can go ahead and answer it if you'd like. I mean, in the master plan, there's 2 proposed accesses. We tried to minimize them as much as possible. These are Baldwin County roads. They do want the access. There are a couple of right-of-ways inside Stillwater that are set for future access, but they aren't stubbed out like the one we did come in and connect to with Phase 1. They're encouraged.
Is that one and that's the other?
No, sir, that's actually the dam of the lake, which is shared lake. There's only one connection in this phase. The other one would come in Phase 2. And that can be seen on that master plan. I don't know if Casey wants to pull it back up or not. Yeah, it's just down there. Yeah, right there. So there are 2 other right-of-ways inside Stillwater that we before had connection to that we took out and just left them alone. They will just be future wooded areas backing up to a lot. Like I said, Baldwin County encourages it. It's required as part of Spanish Fork subdivision regulations and the fire marshal. It's up to you guys from there.
I want to ask you one specific question.
Sure.
In the master plan, are there any multifamily units?
No, sir. This is 160 single-family lots, mixture. It's Baldwin County zoned, minimum 60-foot lot. They're mostly 80s with a mixture of 80s and 60s.
All right, so there are no 50-foot lots on your proposed master plan?
Baldwin County's minimum is 60-foot lot, and that's what we've met.
Okay.
By right. No multifamily. And a little background, the last time you guys seen this at a Baldwin County, they were going for a PRD, which had the multifamily, and they didn't see the luck of that. That was a different engineering company out of Auburn, Alabama. And they since came down here, gave this to us, and we redrew it out, gave a different connection to address the traffic. AlDOT has seen this, and Matthew's seen it as well. There is a traffic study that will be phased. There is a right turn lane that is called with Phase 1 with a future left turn lane that will come as well.
So, Mr. Chairman, then I would encourage them to get their engineering responses back to staff as soon as possible. Are you planning on changing the overall layout of the master plan?
No plans to do that. And another thing on the water, I'll go ahead and address that as well. I spoke to White House Water, and they have current plans to tie to Spanish Fork water to the south, which will help some of your pressure concerns in your neighborhoods that you guys may not know about. They connect to NBU in the north, and they will connect to Spanish Fort Water across the bridge to the south. And that'll help some of the demand in there.
And you're sure about that?
That come from him
From who?
particularly, yes. It's White House Water. So they'll share, so they'll pay Spanish Fort Water back and forth.
I have heard of the connectivity going north because of the recent agreement with malls, but that is something we've got to look at as a city about a franchise or something running through our city.
These small water systems, as the mayor's alluding to, franchises have protected water service areas under their federal mortgages and for financing purposes, so we need to make sure that.
Of course, no, then that's just me, that's just hearsay, me hearing that from White House Water. They said they have discussions with Spanish Fort Water and you guys and all that. That's just something in the future that I know,
Let's make sure you understand, Spanish Fort Water is not the city of Spanish Fort.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, absolutely. I was just trying to address some of the water supply and stuff they see. They did give us a willing to serve the entire master plan.
So the overall plan's 80-foot lots, 60-foot lots, no 50-foot lots, 160 units, no multifamily.
Correct.
Okay. So some of that, from what you all have said, sounds like improvements, but please watch the details. And they would like to have some things addressed regarding the lake access, common area access. And so,
Sure.
if you could present that prior to the next meeting,
Sure.
that'd be great.
Then the lake is, our property line runs dead through the middle of the lake. So we tried to minimize as much as possible. Like I said, Spanish Fort's requiring a 10-foot park access or 10% park space. So we have to give some sort of amenity space to be used. I know the berm is shared, and all the way down, the berm is shared on the south side too. But I would definitely look at it.
I do know of one other thing I heard during one of the gentlemen mentioned that residents were going to vote to erect a gate.
It's Baldwin
on one of the
County,
goes- yeah,
it's Baldwin County right away that they won't allow a gate.
I just thought it might be worth saying out loud
Yeah,
that you might want to be careful about
We've
that.
been that route once before, and I don't think we'll ever go back there.
No, they will not come through your entrance, if I'm allowed to answer. They will come through 225, off of 225. I'm sorry? There is a extra detention pond. You can barely see that little polyline in that larger area just to the north of those. Yes. Absolutely. That's the reason for the extra pond.
Hello, 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 hello. The public hearing is over. If you can, would you return in our next meeting?
Let me repeat for us one more time. Notice is gonna go out, again, to everybody within 300 feet. We post a sign to let people know, and then we send it to the POA in hoping that everybody gets out there. Now, prior to the meeting, even tomorrow, you can come in and ask to see this and take a look at it. It's available. You don't have to wait to the meeting to see it for the first time. You're welcome to come in and ask to see what's been submitted and review it, and even get copies if you want to pay the cost for copying. So that's why we send out the notice ahead of time, to give people a chance to come in. And in this case, you're actually going to have a little more time because of the postponement to look at it and come look in. So we encourage you to take a look at it and become very familiar with it.
Any additional discussion with the panel?
I just want to say I'm encouraged. I love it when we have people show up and give us their input. So appreciate all you guys being here sincerely.
Yeah, well, I do want to thank you for coming out. It takes an effort to get here, I know that, and I hate that it's been delayed, but as Mr. Connor mentioned, that's probably a good thing, because there's a lot of questions that need to be asked, need to be addressed. So thank you for coming out tonight, and please come back December 12th. We need to hear it. If we don't hear it from you, we don't know about it, so thank you for that.
Is this the final, Gates, does this get kicked up to Baldwin County, or does this panel here have the final thumbs up, thumbs down?
Public hearing is over.
Mr. Connor?
The answer is that the planning commission, it's very complicated, one reason, but I'll do the best I can in the short term. The planning commission hears and approves the subdivision, master plan, and the subdivision plat. Any zoning questions or issues are administered by the Baldwin County Planning Commission. But as long as they are building as allowed by right in that zoning classification, then they would not have to go seek any further approval from the Planning Commission, Baldwin County Planning Commission, to my knowledge. The city of Spanish Fort does not exercise its police jurisdiction outside the corporate limits, which means that we don't issue building permits or provide police service outside or other services outside the city other than the subdivision review process. So building permit reviews, issuance of building permits, and those kind of things will be done through the Baldwin County Building Department. Does that answer your question? All right, good deal.
Moving on to agenda item 221104, application for preliminary plat. We'll have a public hearing on this one for the Churchill subdivision phase 5. Casey?
Mr. Chairman, this applicant is proposing to subdivide 19.83 acres located to the west of Churchill Phase 3 into 59 lots, averaging approximately 15,648 square feet. The applicant is proposing to construct 3,450 linear feet of roadway with a right-of-way of 50 feet to be dedicated for public maintenance. The existing conditions within the vicinity of the subject property are typically low to medium density single-family residential uses, similar to the proposed development. The subject property is identified as low-density single-family residential in the Spanish Fort Comprehensive Plan. As I mentioned in the work session, the applicant has performed a tree survey for the site as requested, and as a result has requested permission from the Planning Commission to remove a total of 12 preservation trees ranging in size from 19 inches diameter breast height to 61 inches diameter breast height. A traffic study was completed in 2017 and has been reviewed by city staff. Traffic improvements have been implemented with the previous phases of the subdivision, and an updated traffic study was not requested by AlDOT. The applicant has provided verification of service from all applicable utility providers for this phase. Staff has reviewed the most recent revision submitted for this application and is satisfied that all comments have been addressed and that the proposed site plan is in compliance with all applicable ordinances and regulations. Therefore, pending further comments from the Planning Commission regarding landscaping and tree protection, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve agenda item 221104, preliminary plat application for Churchill Phase 5.
Discussion? Public hearing is now open for this agenda item. If you would like to speak, you sign up at our sign-up desk, and when I call your name, you can approach the podium. Public hearing is closed. Discussion? Can we get a motion in?
Motion to approve agenda item 221104.
Second. I normally don't make a motion or a second, but I want to move this along a little bit here.
Roll call.
Gant,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Diamond,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Tucker, McMillan.
Yes.
Agenda item 221104 has been approved for Churchill subdivision Phase 5. Next agenda item is 221105, application for zoning change from B3 to B4 on Bass Pro Drive. Casey?
Mr. Chairman, I don't exactly know the status of this one. I may need to have David answer this one.
It's on the agenda tonight for a public hearing. I would suggest that based on some conversations that we've had with the applicant, that you open the public hearing, hold the public hearing, and then postpone action to the next meeting, recess the public hearing, and allow it to be open again at the next meeting as well.
David, just to clarify, though, we did not post anything or send out notices for a public hearing for this agenda item.
We did not send out notice of public hearing?
Right.
Then there's no need to have a public hearing, there's no action that can be taken. So postpone action to the next meeting.
Okay.
But he will need to send out notices for the next meeting.
If the applicant wants to go forward, then we'll need to send out those notices.
David, can you inform the planning commission any more about this project or anything at all about it?
Nothing to inform more at the moment, other than we have a zoning amendment that is affecting that project potentially.
Next agenda item is 221106, regulation review. We also have a public hearing on amending section 6.4, table of permitted uses and conditions of ordinance number 5196, adding uses related to the sale of medical marijuana. Casey?
Mr. Chairman, Casey's asked me to handle this one and the next item as well, the two amendments. This is a proposed recommendation. This is a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Council regarding a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow or state where medical marijuana dispensaries can be operated. The City Council, by ordinance, has voted in accordance with applicable state law to allow the operation of medical dispensaries in the city of Spanish Fort, subject to an amendment to the table of permitted uses as to which locations that should be allowed. If you look at the attached amendment to the table of permitted uses, we show in the existing table, apothecaries are allowed with Planning Commission approval in B2 and by right in B3 and B4. Drugstores are allowed by right in B3 and B4. And so the recommendation that we brought forward is that you consider allowing or amending the table of permitted uses to allow medical marijuana dispensaries with Planning Commission approval in B2, B3, and B4. And this would be a recommendation to the City Council.
Any discussion? Public hearing on this one? Public hearing is closed. Can we get a recommendation?
Yeah, I'll make a motion for 221106 to recommend the city council for this amendment to the city zoning ordinance.
Second.
Roll call?
Gant,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Diamond. Vaughn,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Tucker. McMillan.
Yes.
Positive recommendation for agenda item 221106 to the City Council has been approved. Next item, agenda item 221107, regulation review, also a public hearing, amending section 6.4, table of permitted uses and condition of ordinance 51-96, removal of uses related to warehouse, storage, and distribution facilities in the B4 major business district. This is also a recommendation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, this is an amendment to the table of permitted uses that would remove warehouse, storage, and distribution facilities from B4 and go back to where it was previously, allowing only an M1 by right.
Any discussion? We get a recommendation to the city.
Make a motion, we forward a positive recommendation to City Council on agenda item 221107.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Gant,
Yes.
Davis, Diamond,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Tucker, McMillan.
Yes.
It's been suggested that a positive recommendation to the city on agenda item 221107. Any discussion items? Announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission will be held Monday, December 12th, 2022. A work session will begin at 6 p.m. in the multipurpose room of the Spanish Fort Community Center, followed by the regular meeting at 6:30 p.m. The next informal work session of the Planning Commission will be held Monday, November 28th at 6 p.m. The submission deadline for December 2022 regular meeting agenda is Tuesday, November 15th at 12 noon. With no other business, we get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.